Okay. Only if I call her for backup.
She is.
All right, we'll call back to order. We're 3 senators short of a full load, but we've got a big agenda and welcome Mr. Lacombe and Representative Goggles, and welcome your. Please introduce yourselves, and the floor is yours. We're reopening HHR for purposes of hearing from these good folks here.
My name is Claire Johnson, and I'm the in-house counsel for the Northern Arapaho Tribe.
Welcome, Claire.
Patrick Lacrone. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Northern Arapaho Enterprises 2.
And I'm Goggles. I'm the chairman of the Northern Arapaho Tribe. Chairman, if I may.
Please, and welcome, Mr. Chairman. Good
afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. I would like to offer some comments on behalf of the Northern Arapaho Tribe, as well as deliver some context about the gaming story of the Northern Arapaho Tribe within Wyoming. There was a lot said today that was missed, and the only reason why I want to offer that is just to give, I'm going to call the proper respect to the men who, well, actually the men and women who took that on my predecessors, so to speak. So, being with that, I'd like to offer a history of the Wyoming gaming. In the early 2000s, the Northern Arapaho Tribe approached the state of Wyoming to begin the negotiations for a tribal gaming compact under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. The negotiations between the Northern Arapaho Tribe, they ultimately failed, and the tribe sought remedy in the United States, the District Court for the District of Wyoming. In February 6, 2002, the District Court found that the state of Wyoming had failed to negotiate with the tribe in good faith. The decision of the District Court was appealed to the 10th Circuit of Appeals, who once again ruled in favor of the tribe. In September 2005, the Secretary of Interior issued secretarial procedures to the Northern Arapaho Tribe to operate both Class 2 and 3 Vegas style casino and gaming. In 2006, the state of Wyoming negotiated and ratified a gaming compact with the Eastern Shoshone Tribe, who are present today, allowing them to operate gaming. Since the issuance of the secretarial procedures, the Northern Arapaho Tribe has successfully operated multiple casinos within the state of Wyoming, created hundreds of jobs, and generated millions of dollars in economic impact. The Northern Arapaho Tribe lacks a tax base to generate revenue to fund the tribal government, and the revenues are derived from the casino and gaming are used to support tribal programs and social services for our tribal members, and there's also a mixed bag between enrolled members and non-enrolled members who are either married or in a relationship or have mutual children. So it's that all adds to it. Wyoming gaming history over the last number of years, gaming has expanded within the state. The expansion has resulted in a decline in revenue at the tribe's casino. We have seen expansion with the skills games, the HHR, the sports book, and now there's a desire to introduce the casino iGaming in the state. And all that, it takes a little away from everything else. It just, that's just the nature of the beast, as as it's been mentioned earlier. Two, there's and being is that we're heavily regulated, and so with all within all with all that the fairness of IGRA, there's no doubt that the Wyoming Gaming Commission needs stronger authorities from the state legislature to be able to effectively regulate gaming activities within the state. It's just, what we have now is industry writing all the regulations to a larger extent that should be for best management practices. And we believe this, the committee has a professional regulatory body, that needs to oversee all gaming in the state. Parimutuel gaming could remain as a separate or subcategory of the regulatory body. 3 would be capping the runaway growth of the HHR, which been, that's been mentioned here, throughout, this morning. We share a desire, which we always do, and just to, I think it's fair to remind the lady and the gentleman here present, as well as members from the audience, is that we are Wyoming citizens. We've been here for a long time, and we help. We help through various counties, with our shared things that we take a part of, and that's just how we are. So with that being said, is that we're always open to share a little bit more of the background, to share anything that you ladies and gentlemen and members of the body would like to know or learn about, because I think, just like anything else, the more the easier it gets. And we all need to understand, because I've had to understand, I have a little bit of casino experience, from working there myself. So, and so with that being said, I would like to commend the Representative Walters for your efforts in that. I'm looking in the past session to tie the number of HHR machines, as well as the dates in particular. That was really an important thing, and we appreciate it. So we're help, but with that, I think with that being brought up, is that we're beyond, we should be beyond dialogue. We should be fine tuning these little things with, and, I've invited members of the body before to come and visit, see how because that's, the knowledgeable members of the team, that's, why I brought them up today. And, that's always an open invitation to, get to know our culture. And, there's so many cultures and contacts that we know throughout the country that, we could, be able to share that too with what's going on in, in all of the Indian country and gaming and everything else. So, but that's all I have, Chairman. I appreciate this body's time, and if there's any questions.
Representative Larson.
Chairman Goggles, thanks for being here. I just want to make sure. So when you guys entered into that compact, you're operating under the Indian Gaming Commission, I believe. Is that accurate?
Chairman, if I may, Representative, we actually don't have a compact. We operate under what's called secretarial procedures. There's approximately, I think, 8 tribes currently in the United States that do not have compacts with their states.
Right, but it's not the state. It's a different compact, Mr. Chairman. And so my question there is that you're used, and this is the question, is I believe that you're used to some pretty strict regulations governing how you operate gambling for the tribe. If that's not correct, if you could confirm that. And then secondly, how do you feel having those clear identified regulations help or hinder you as you operate within the state of Wyoming?
Chairman, if I may, Representative Larson, the Northern Arapaho tribe is very regulated. We have to answer both to the National Indian Gaming Commission. We have to follow federal law, but then we also self-regulate. The tribe has promulgated its own regulations in its Title III gaming code. We have our own gaming commission, which is on site at our casinos pretty much every single day. So we take the regulation of gaming incredibly seriously. We think that in this industry, this type of regulation is required to make sure that you're operating and creating a good gaming experience for the citizens of the state of Wyoming.
Thank you.
It's the National Indian Gaming Commission, and then who at the federal level?
That is the federal level. The National Indian Gaming Commission is appointed by the United States Senate. So the chairman there approves all gaming ordinances by the tribes. So we have to get it approved at federal level, our laws on gaming, and then we enforce them at the tribal level.
Yeah, I thought you said there was also a federal agency. Was there another federal agency?
It is the National Indian Gaming Commission is the federal agency.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, follow up.
Representative Larson.
And the difference, and you were forced that direction by virtue of the state back in 06 or whatever it was, when those negotiations failed and we couldn't enter into a state compact. That's the direction the Northern Arapaho tribe went. Eastern Shoshone tribe, a few years later, then entered into a compact with the state of Wyoming, but there's a difference between the two. Is that correct?
That is correct. So under IGRA, normally most states and tribes enter into a gaming compact, where normally there are things such as revenue sharing and exclusivity involved in that. Northern Arapaho, because the state of Wyoming refused to negotiate a compact and the court found that Wyoming negotiated in bad faith, were granted secretarial procedures directly from the Secretary of the Interior under which they operate gaming without any state involvement.
Thanks.
Okay. Anything else for these folks? Anything else?
I just have a question. So I'm just curious how your operations are doing. I mean, are you getting increased activity at post-COVID so that your revenues are up, or just how are operations?
So I Chairman and Co-Chair, if I may, are they up post-COVID? That's an interesting, the entire gaming community was up in 2021. Levels are now, it's starting to level off. If you look at the numbers from Vegas, they've actually started to post quarter-over-quarter losses in comparison. I mean, they're not losing money, but they are seeing a decline. If you ask from the Northern Arapaho side, if you look at our revenues from 2012, as the number of HHRs increased, our revenue decreased almost 1-for-1, and our headcounts did also. So as Wyoming increased, we did decrease.
Thank you.
And would you be able to, are you comfortable sharing with us, what the revenue was pre-HHR and to current, either revenue or number of visitors or anything like that? What data would you be comfortable sharing?
I don't have that chart with me, but I could make say the number of visitors. The revenue, that's private.
And
Okay.
did you have the same effect when Rose's opened on the Shoshone side?
Quite frankly, no. They're a much
Okay.
smaller facility. We operate 2 and at one time 3 facilities.
Okay. Anything else? Representative Larson.
Please remind me how many tribal members the casino employs?
Total Northern Arapaho Enterprises 2, which is our umbrella that operates all of our businesses, including our casinos. We have between 400 and 450 total employees. 70% are enrolled, 10% are enrolled other, and then the balance is non-enrolled members.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, folks, very
Thank
much.
you.
You said there were representatives of the Eastern Shoshone here? Were there?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Chairman. I said there.
Oh, okay. All right. Mr. Picard. So what we're going to do is we carved an hour out of ETS. Instead of ETS going 1:30 to 3, it'll go 2 to 3. So we'll have an hour on gaming. We're trying to hit the 2 topics that we were not able to get to after historic horse racing. I want to emphasize again, the committee is going to seek more time. This is not one and done. There will be many more opportunities for testimony and submission of information. With that, Mr. Picard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We'll be very brief. My name is Dave Pickard, represents the Sports Betting Alliance. And, under your agenda topic of comprehensive review of gaming in Wyoming, that's why we're here. We want to tell you about the illegal operating games that exist. They existed before the online sports wagering bill was adopted, and partially the policy behind the adoption of the Online Sports Wagering Act was to start converting that illegal market into a legal consumer protected market. With me today, I have obviously Representative Bob Davis. He was he's a former member of the Gaming Commission. He's now a member of your body. He also was our prime sponsor of a interactive gaming bill. And with me also is Scott Ward from the Sports Betting Alliance. And we gave you a very small PowerPoint presentation. We're not going to ask that be presented. I think what Mr. Ward's going to do is just walk through it verbally. We'll take any questions. But with that, I certainly want to defer first to Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission here. I brought this up because a few years ago when I was chairman on the Gaming Commission, this had come to light several years back. And, it's very, very innovative. Let's put it that way. We looked at online sports wagering and how we could structure that. And that is the foundation for what this could be. Okay, we've got the geofencing to protect the Indian grounds, and once we had sports wagering, they have the only brick and mortar sports wagering facility in the state of Wyoming. And once again, because of the foundation that the commission laid then, this could fall right into there and take up what is a illegal market in the state of Wyoming. We need to protect the wagerers of the state of Wyoming. And that's why I brought the last year's legislation, is just to get the light out there, get this shedded, that this is existing. And we need to, as legislators, capitalize upon this and protect our voters.
Mr. Chairman.
Please, Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Representative Davis, similar to what Attorney General Kaler was put out in his memo, that having proper regulation in place up front makes it a lot easier than trying to play catch up as we have in other gaming parts of our statute. The online sports wagering, we did it all up front and it's been a lot more efficient. Is that similar to what you're discussing here?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, yes. I mean, we did the commission did the legwork for this to actually come forth. At the time it was new, it's innovative. I look back in time and I look at my cell phone. Oh my gosh, what it can do now, that's what it did back then, are two different things. So we're looking at a different generation of wagerers out there that we need to protect. We just went over and had lunch at the student union. Now those guys are the iGaming generation. I'm the OTB generation because I don't understand the iGaming, but that's the wagers that we need to protect. I mean, currently they're being exposed to offshore platforms, which are illegal. No different than what we did with the sports wagering. That was offshore, illegal. We brought that in now, and we've got confidence in our wagerers, i.e. the voters of the state of Wyoming. We've given them a protected platform. And you were talking about the 21 and know your wagerer. There's so much out there that we can offer with this iGaming. Plus, on the other hand, it could also generate some revenue for the state of Wyoming that is illegally occurring right now.
Can you tell me what's different between what we're doing now with online wagering and what you're proposing? I'm lost. Sorry.
Two different ideas.
Okay.
Online sports wagering is sports. iGaming is based on casino type games.
And we don't allow that now?
No, that's illegal in the state of Wyoming.
Okay. Lots of people doing it.
Well, just because you do it doesn't make it legal, right?
So you can set up a regulatory apparatus, but people can bypass that, can't they? I mean, how do you keep somebody from doing online sports betting through an offshore conglomerate on the internet? How do we stop that?
We, the state of Wyoming actually did that by giving them the option of coming onto a platform that has reputation and is protected for you as a wager. If you say when you just won the Kentucky Derby off the offline offshore platform and won $1 million, is that $1 million really in your account, or did they just dissolve their platform after you cashed in the winning ticket? That's the question.
Okay.
All right. Now, if you're dealing with Wyoming regulated platform, that $1 million is there for you as the wagerer.
So how do you know? There's a little seal of approval on the internet site, or how do you know which ones are protected by the state of Wyoming and which ones are this offshore fly-by-nighter?
The authorized vendors for the state of Wyoming is who you would know your consumer or your customer. You would, in order to play on a Wyoming based platform, if I'm following this correctly, you sign up for that platform. That gives you that assurance that you're on a reputable platform.
Okay.
If you're going to sign up on an offshore one over there in Bermuda, well, that's where you would hopefully that you were reputable.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions from the committee? Other questions from the committee? Sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Scott Ward, I am the National Public Policy Counsel for the Sports Betting Alliance. Sports Betting Alliance is made up of the leading online operators for both sports betting and iGaming. That is FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, and Fanatics Sportsbook and Gaming. We operate here in the state under the sports betting rules you all passed, and they've been very proud to be leaders here on the online sports betting market in the state. We're here today to probably talk about iGaming, and so let me address that and then come back to some of the questions on sports betting that we heard earlier. Mr. Chairman, the answer to your question is, what is iGaming? iGaming is iCasino. It is roulette, it's craps, it's slot machines, it is poker, blackjack, played on your phone or on your mobile device, your computer, that sort of thing. It is anything you typically would find in a Class 3 casino. You can do it on your phone. Your point was very well taken. It is already in the state of Wyoming, and it is happening in a big way. Just for context for you, 8 states have legalized iGaming, including New Jersey that legalized it back in 2013. So they have a 10-year, full decade experience of what online iGaming has done and how it's operated in their state. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But regulated iGaming has all the same consumer protections that the regulated sportsbook market that you have here today does. You heard testimony earlier that it's gone very well, I think was the exact quote. Spent a good amount of time setting up that regulation using Know Your Customer, making sure that minors are not involved. In fact, Keith White, who is the head of the National Council on Problem Gambling, has said that the regulated sports betting market does a very good job of keeping minors out, and he's not aware of any issues with that. And we agree with that. We do a great job of keeping those folks who are underage off of our sites. The illegal market doesn't do that. And so I would encourage you to Google or search anyway, real money casino, something like that, online gaming. You can do it on your phone. You can go back to your house. You do it there. You're going to see dozens and dozens of options for you to play blackjack, play slot machines, play any sort of casino game you can find with real money. I went and did it last night. I've included some screenshots for you in the slide deck. I like this one in particular because the name of the company is BetUS. They're located in Panama, not in the US. There's a 4-step process to sign up. I put in my name and my email address that I made up, put in a phone number and address here in Wyoming that I made up. They then asked me to check a box to say that I was 18, which I did. And then they asked me for my credit card information. I didn't put my credit card information in, but it's that easy to do it. You can play blackjack and roulette, craps, anything you want there. The interesting thing about that site is that if you go into the terms of service, which nobody does, but if you go into the terms of service on that site, it says, and I quote, "It is your responsibility to ensure that at all times you comply with all the laws and regulations in the country or jurisdiction where you are located or reside. Persons found to have violated this section will not be entitled to collect any winnings. They're happy to take your bets, but they're not going to pay you out because they know you live in a state, a country, frankly, in many respects, that doesn't allow it." It's not just that though. There is these things that you may have seen now. And by the way, if you Google what you just did, I apologize. You're going to start getting social media ads for things called social casinos. Social casinos, Jumba Casino is one of them. I have some screenshots of that. Social casinos are casinos that are using loopholes in the sweepstakes laws in Wyoming and others. They operate here in the state. They're available in the App Store. You can download it. They look very much, they're designed to mimic gambling casinos. It looks like a slot machine. They are, again, using sweepstakes laws to some loopholes, but they offer you free credits, but you can buy credits and et cetera, exchange your free credits for gift cards. This is gambling, and it's operating here in the state as well. So those are the main places where you see it. What we'd like to do is do what we did with sports betting that has been so effective here. Representative Davis' bill would, in almost all respects, follow the sports betting regulations and rules regarding consumer protections, regarding responsible play, regarding problem gambling. And that's something that we do very well because it's electronic. We know what you're doing at all times. We're able to track it. We're able to flag things that go wrong and reach out and be a resource. One of the great things about legal gambling is that resources are provided for those who have a problem with it. Studies show that about 1% to 2% of Americans have a gambling problem. It's going to be a fact of any population. That doesn't mean that 98% of people shouldn't be able to do what they want to do with their the adults want to do with their entertainment dollar. But you have to make sure you take care of that 1% or 2%. And we do that because we can track them and see them and help them. Legal gambling provides resources to those folks. Illegal gambling doesn't. In fact, what we found in states that legalize this type of stuff is that folks who have had gambling problems for years, but were afraid to get help because they either knew what they were doing was illegal.
Can I ask you just to stick
Yeah.
to the iGaming?
Sure.
As opposed to gambling issues?
Sure. Well, this is iGaming. This is one of the main concerns. I'll jump ahead. Problem gambling is important, and we address it quickly. Last but not least, and I'll finish. One of the things you hear, and you heard it today, is concerns about cannibalization of iGaming for brick and mortar facilities, casinos, VLTs, that sort of thing. There was a study put out by the analysis group, which we can share with you. It's quite long, but the basic point is that, and I'll read you the quote. They did a study of the 6 states that had iGaming, full iGaming, prior to last year. And what they said was that prior to the legalization of iGaming, casino revenues was generally stagnant or down. But after, the total gaming revenue far exceeded the projected revenue that would have occurred based on the pre-iGaming growth rates of land-based revenue. What they found was essentially a 75% increase in states that had iGaming versus those that did not. Further, and I'll go back to where I started, New Jersey has had iGaming since 2013, full 10 years of it. There has not been cannibalization. In fact, it's been up since then to record numbers. You all mentioned COVID 2021. It's up in 2022. In fact, in Pennsylvania in 2022, year over year, and they've had iGaming in Pennsylvania since pre-COVID. In 2022, VLT revenue was up 6%. Slot machine revenue was up 5%. Table game revenue was up 7%. Overall gaming was up 10%. This is a long way of saying is that cannibalization is not an issue. Frankly, we capture illegal market, allow adults to do something with their entertainment dollar, and we provide revenue to the state.
Okay, thank you.
So a couple of questions. So right now, for any iGaming that's going on in the state of Wyoming, it's all other than sports betting. It's contrary to law. Is that fair?
Mr. Chairman, yes, absolutely.
And so what are the other states, other than the 8 that have legalized it, what are they doing to prevent or to shut down iGaming? I mean, can you do it through your phone service? Can you get Spectrum or some other entity to block it? I mean, is anyone doing that? I'm just curious what the alternatives are.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Representative, several other states are evaluating iGaming legalization, just as you are today, seeing the model that they've seen in these other 8 states. Again, we think that's probably the best thing to do. The earlier question of how do you differentiate by legalizing it, by regulating it, and then having good actors in the state who are known. DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, these types of companies are well known to your constituency because they see the advertisements. They know that they're reputable companies. They don't know who BetUS is, and then BetUS won't tell you that they're illegal. But by allowing for safe and legal options, that's how you push the illegal market out. And we've seen that in states that have legalized it.
Do you have data on that?
We have, Mr. Chairman, we have anecdotal data. Obviously, the illegal market does not tell us the revenue. But what we have seen, and we can show you examples of that, is that where this type of activity is legalized, advertising stops in those states from the illegal market. They're advertising here on social media, online, those types of places. We also have, you can look at Google Trend searches to show, and that is Google will provide you with analysis of searches in your state. And you can see searches of the illegal sites versus the legal sites, pre-legalization and post-legalization, and it flips. Pre-legalization, all those illegal sites are the highest searches. After legalization, it's DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, and the others who offer legally.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Stith.
Yeah, following up on Chairman Nicholas's question, Mr. Ward. So one of the reasons we adopted the online sports wagering statute was to address this problem of the then existing illegals online sports wagering. Is there any way, this may be the same question he asked, is there any way to measure the increased online sports wagering that occurs because you've now legalized it? Because there are some people who never wouldn't do the illegal version of online sports wagering, but who now do, like myself, for example, right? I've got an online sports wagering app on my phone, and that's how I contribute to the general fund of the state of Wyoming. But is there any way to estimate? Obviously, the illegal bookmakers aren't reporting their revenues to any agency. Is there any way to estimate the expected increase in overall wagering activity if you legalize iGaming?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, as you alluded to, it's difficult to know. We don't know what the revenue was. We have estimates based on polling and studies done as to what we believe was happening in the state prior to legalization of iGaming or sports betting versus, and then we know what happens afterwards. We know that, based on our estimates that right now Wyoming is probably capturing about half of what we thought was happening right there. So we know there's room to grow. The markets take some time. With that 316 million number. Actually, I'm sorry, that's more than half. That's 2/3 at least. So we know that is occurring. Some percentage of that, Representative, are folks like you and me who didn't do it in the illegal market, but now that it's legal, and I enjoy it, I do it responsibly, just like you do. And so that's certainly a percentage of that. But we just don't know how many of those folks were in the previous market versus now. But we just do it based on the revenue estimates.
Representative Larson. 25 minutes.
Thank you. So the question I have is, so if you, for example, if you were a gaming operator now, that like the Arapaho tribe here, you're telling me that there's the illegal gaming going on now. I'm using the term illegal, maybe wrong, but the unsecured gaming, iGaming going on now, which is taken away from gambling at their facility, using them as an example. If we implemented something in statute that made it legal to do iGaming in Wyoming, are you telling me that that would just capture those who are currently doing it illegally and not be taken away any from existing or cannibalizing any of the existing stuff? Is that what you're finding? Or seems difficult to believe that would be completely accurate, but help me.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, so when we talk about the illegal gaming, I'm talking about online only. And so if there was other gaming going on in the state, retail or in person, I'm not capturing that at all. If that's taken away, just the online. And so anything happening online right now in the state of Wyoming, other than sports betting, is illegal. What we have found through studies and through looking at other states is that is activity that is happening outside of the retail location already, and will continue to do so. Frankly, it is additive to retail gaming sites. In other states, tribes participate in the entire, not just on their reservation, but or their property or tribal property, but throughout the entire state through working with the state. Michigan's a perfect example that has iGaming where the tribes participate. And so it can be additive to those folks that do that because you are reaching out to other folks. But the numbers from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and others just simply show that retail, VLTs, casinos, others, all has continued to go up. as iGaming has been introduced.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Thank you,
Uh,
Mr. Chairman.
you're very welcome. Any folks from skills or online sports wagering? Those are two topics we have not yet touched upon. We just finished up iGaming. We have skills.
Chairman, we were all also the online sports wagering. Unless there's
Okay.
other folks in the
All right,
room that want to address that.
Okay. all right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jonathan Downing appearing on behalf of Cowboy Skill and Pace-O-Matic, also joined by Catherine Wilkinson and Leslie George, who's one of our operators of Cowboy Skill up in the northeastern corner of our great state. In the interest of time, we will do our best to keep it brief. And after a couple just background pieces, then I'll turn it over to Ms. Wilkinson to cover a couple of these issues that have come up. As you consider this issue over the interim, and as this has been in front of this committee several times with different legislative bodies and different committee members, what does Wyoming's gaming environment look like? Has been one of those issues that continues to come up. And so we appreciate you taking the time for an interim committee study on this issue, and also taking the time over the next couple of years to see what that looks like for Wyoming and where we are. When Cowboy Skill and Pace-O-Matic came into Wyoming, the discussions back during that time were along the lines of not looking like the state to our north. And in the state to the north, we had some regulatory pressures, or lack of regulatory pressures is probably the better way to frame that issue. And so when Pace-O-Matic, who's the manufacturer of Cowboy Skill games, which are located across Wyoming, came into Wyoming, it was having a discussion with policymakers and local communities of what those games might look like in their communities. And so there was a framework put in place, a regulatory framework, which was voted on by prior legislatures, that laid out 4 games per location. You need to be an over 21 environment in either a truck stop, a smoke shop, or a liquor license holder. And in addition to that, you need to be over the age of 21. You had limits on the amount of what could be played and what could be won. And that was the foundation for providing skill game regulation within the state of Wyoming in 2020. The Wyoming Gaming Commission converted from Gaming Commission to Parimutuel, or from Parimutuel Commission to Gaming Commission. And in that time, that seemed like the best regulatory body available. And that was also one of those areas where they touch a lot on gaming. But one of the things as discussions that come up, there's confusion at times as far as what are skill game locations as far as our operators, and what are other locations where you have more larger off-track betting facilities, historic horse racing, and then also the racetracks. Our games are located in VFWs, American Legions, your smaller neighborhood bars and restaurants, primarily truck stops along I-80, because there's requirements of how much fuel must be consumed at those truck stops to qualify. They have to be in an over 21 area in those locations. And then our games are also located in smoke shops, because nicotine is one of those over 21 types of products that's available in that area. And so as we look at regulation and how regulation has evolved, one of the key areas that we've looked at, and this came forward with the announcement of the retirement of Director Moore, which was appreciated. Or we appreciate your service, Director Moore. Didn't mean to slip, my dear long friend. However, during that time, it was one of those times to take a look at how we're regulated. And years ago, I worked with this committee when we had the Government Efficiency Task Force come forward. And one of the findings of that Government Efficiency Task Force years ago had been looking at volunteer commissions versus actions that can be taken by governmental agencies that are department director level types of agencies. And With our commissions, our commission has done an incredible job. The staff did an incredible job during 2020, standing up the regulatory framework to license, regulate, permit, and collect taxes from our operators in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. And they did an incredible yeoman's job in that respect. And so as we look at how this has evolved, you had a great deal of testimony this morning. You can see how big of an issue some of our other friends within the gaming space take up as far as the air in the room for when you're looking at a gaming commission, as far as all the things that go in with that part of the industry. We're a lot smaller. We're also smaller businesses, and we believe that we've evolved to a stage where Department of Revenue is built to tax, it's built to regulate, and it's built along those lines where we already deal with the Department of Revenue through a number of our members. And so in that respect, that's why we're saying, as you go through this process, take a look at possibly transferring some of those duties over to the Department of Revenue in the form of a division of gaming. And in that process, you may also depoliticize some of the decisions that have to be put forward against a volunteer commission versus when you have an agency director who's mainly looking at, am I taxing it? Am I licensing it? And am I regulating it appropriately? And in turn, that agency director is accountable to you as a body for how that operation goes. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Wilkinson.
Mr. Chairman, again, Catherine Wilkinson representing Cowboy Skill and Pace-O-Matic. Just to distinguish our games a little bit, Cowboy Skill is a Wyoming version. Pace-O-Matic is the manufacturer of our machines. We have 6 different competing operators across the state. Their traditional businesses were supplying anything that you'd find for entertainment in bars, pool tables, dartboards, jukeboxes, and then they now offer skill games. We do have Leslie George here if you have any specific vendor questions. I think Mr. Downing covered most of what I was going to say, as well as all the previous testimony, so I'll keep this as short as possible. We would just say that we have been very intentional with working with the legislature to establish those parameters in the regulation. Gaming does need regulation, and we do think that the Division of Gaming under the Department of Revenue, or DARDOG, as we have fondly called it, would be an appropriate licensing board, at least for skill games. I would also note this is a wonderful opportunity with the legislature to set the parameters of what they want to see in Wyoming. And as you look at these statutes, if you look on the Green Book, I mean, it is in Title 11, which are the agriculture statutes. If you look on the spine of the book, gaming is not even listed. So it's a big issue in Wyoming, and we do think that it needs that separate attention. To distinguish skill games, as we said, the up to 4 is very specific. The 21 age was specific, the $3 gameplay, the $3,000 max payout, all of those were designed specifically. Skill games are always meant to be as a supplemental revenue stream to small businesses. That's who we support. You're never going to know that a skill game is in a business by the advertising signs on the outside. They're meant to be part of another business. That is the primary reason for these games. So we would just like to stand as a resource for you as you go forward with these committee games, or with these committee meetings. And we would stand for any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Question, Representative Stith.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. For Ms. Wilkinson and Mr. Downing, are there states that have migrated from having a gaming commission to folding it into a state agency like a Department of Revenue? And what's that experience been like for those states, if any? And just kind of what are the advantages and disadvantages of having, say, our current structure versus doing what it sounds like you're proposing, which is folding it into the Department of Revenue?
Mr. Chairman, the ones that we are aware of, and I may have Mr. Downing fill in, is that they're usually under the Department of Revenue or a gaming board or a lottery or a gaming commission. And in terms of folding one into the other, I am not sure. I think that it's probably the most efficient under a department rather than having a 9 board volunteer commissioners that have done a good job of trying to understand, but are not experts in the area. As opposed to having a division with people that deal with it day in and day out, and then don't have to provide the packet information going forward. Jonathan, I don't know if you have other states.
Just a last piece on that end, Mr. Chairman. Along those lines, in some states, you might see a Department of Justice or an Attorney General's type of agency that's handling some of your licensing and regulation. Some of those, and we're very specific about staying in our lane as far as not going into the horses part of the world or into some of those other entities that are out there. But you have those other pieces that need to take care of that agricultural side of racing that you might see with a horse racing type of operation where you have agencies built for that part. But with respect to games similar to skill, you do have those areas where you might be looking at a Department of Revenue, a lottery type of corporation, which since Wyoming's the lottery is more of a state-owned quasi public private. This is more the private side of the industry. And so that's where it's how you want to shape that or frame that. Those are things to consider as you look forward. Within skill games themselves, it's cash in, cash out. Very similar to when you're looking at doing tax collections on a volunteer basis with different vendors as far as sales tax and other things. And so along that end, with the total amount of taxes collected and the size of the industry, the last thing I would just say is that as far as the skill game industry, because you have sideboards and because you have limits where those sideboards can be, overall, we're about at the maximum level right now. We believe that we would be as far as locations within Wyoming. And that's a key area, I think, to delineate versus some of the others. We're at that stage where the locations where you want to be, they're there. Those sideboards are there because of liquor licenses. They're there because of the gallons consumed at a truck stop. And they're there because of what you're looking at with tobacco stores. And we did share individually with some of you, there's a potential loophole that needs to be covered under nicotine sales with tobacco smoke shop types of locations, but that's one probably for another day.
Representative, please.
But help us just as we kind of look at low hanging fruit. It sounds like that issue is kind of evolving. Could you just briefly tell us what the issue is so that we could be contemplating that?
Mr. Chairman, absolutely. So along the lines with a tobacco or nicotine based type of store or operation, in other states, and this is where you got to be careful as far as how you're regulating. I mean, your choice on how you regulate, of course, but in other states, you will have LLCs set up to be multiple LLCs that have 50% plus one of their sales be nicotine based. And in that respect, you could have multiple storefronts side by side that when the goal was originally, you're only going to have a skill game operation of 4 games in a location where you could have a location with multiple LLCs side by side. And that wasn't the intent, not to speak to legislative intent of prior legislatures, but the goal had been that you have restrictions on where they can be and how many they are.
Mr. Chairman, if I might add to that, so specifically looking at the definition of smoke shop, it means a retailer that derives 50% more of its gross annual revenue from nicotine products. And what we're seeing here is a lot of the CBD shops and the vape shops are creating a separate LLC and funneling all of their nicotine sales through that one LLC to show 100% of sales. So that would be an area where we would ask for a definition of perhaps including a humidor or some other thing to delineate those from the CBD shops. That was an unintended consequence of that definition. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything else? All right. Thank you. Anybody else on online sports wagering or skills? Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mike Mosier, Wyoming State Liquor Association. Here not just on behalf of Skills, but also businesses who have HHR, pull tabs, lottery, the whole schmeal. We have hundreds of members. Most of the skill games, the vast majority, are in our establishments. Having worked gaming issues for 30 years, I was talking to the good chairman. If anyone wants to hear about how we ended up with poker, I'd be glad to fill you in on the legislation we did in 2006 when grandma got potential felony charges for playing poker with her friends for coffee, or the involvement of when lottery was tied into the horse racing facilities prior to the successful legislation. But I'll cut to the quick, Mr. Chairman. We support looking at gaming as a whole. Bear in mind, our businesses, like I said, are largely involved. The discussion about Department of Revenue, I'm going to address two issues. First one, the topic of Department of Revenue. Some of you might be old enough to remember when we had the Wyoming Liquor Commission, which was a standalone agency. 5 electeds were on the board. The governor looked at privatization of the Liquor Commission. They decided rightly that the system worked. It just didn't need to be a separate agency. So it was combed under the Department of Revenue. I was a retailer at the time. We supported it, but our hair was on fire because we thought it would be a disaster. It has turned out great. Combined resources, combined enforcement. The advantage of the Department of Revenue is that they have agents across the state of Wyoming. This could work similarly. Now, when you look at DOR, possible combination, you could look at some or all of it. I mean, when some of you worked with me to develop the Gaming Commission, in 6 years, it's changed a lot. Representative Zwanitzer remembers when we, in 2013, managed to squeeze by a lottery bill by 1 vote that didn't have scratch. And so it's opened up a lot since then. As a famous philosopher in the 20th century said, what a long, strange trip it's been. I mean, I would not have pictured where we're at now. And so I think it would be prudent for us to look at the overall picture, how it's enforced, how we can make it more effective, more directly accountable, maybe keep the parimutuel commission or the gaming commission as a parimutuel commission, but move some of those things over. I think all that is deserving of being looked at. Mr. Moore and I have worked together for decades. As you well know, that you go from working with somebody to being a steadfast friend with somebody, and I consider Mr. Moore that. He's done an incredible job given the task he has, but since the landscape has changed so much, the question is whether we should do something about it. Now, one of the things, and the prior speakers alluded to this, when people are concerned about the growth of gaming in Wyoming, it's not lottery, it's not skill games, it's not pull tabs, it's not bingo. It's HHR. Now, we have members that are HHRs, but I know that is the concern because they've grown like crazy. They're the one type of gaming that's kind of changed the landscape of our communities. I think it's a wonderful operation. I love those guys, but I know that there are some concerns on the committee and in our community as far as how to address that expansion. I will throw these proposals out, members of the committee, Mr. Chairman, but these are not they're not liquor association positions, just ideas. One of them is treat them like liquor licenses. With liquor licenses, with 2 types of liquor licenses, you have a strict population formula. Not the clubs we represent, but full retail and bar and grills. Perhaps a population formula per county based on the number of gaming establishments or the number of machines. I know one state that does that. The other is sideboards. Perhaps we look at those gaming establishments and say, yeah, your historic horse racing, but do you need to have a packaged liquor store? Do you need to have go-karts? Do you need to have a video golf range? Do we need sideboards to narrow that focus to keep them as they are, as gaming establishments? And so I think those things can be looked at. It's really tough because I hear from the committee and you hear from your constituents and I hear from our retailers, things are growing too fast. I've had 2 board members in the last year whose places have been bought by historic horse racing. They're still on the board. And like I said, I appreciate horse racing, but we're starting to get pushback. So the question is, and I'm willing to lend whatever expertise I seem to have through that process. As the good chairman knows, if I have a liquor license, you can decline issuing me one because I'm ugly and I dress funny, which may be true, but you can. And do we need that kind of leeway with gaming license and gaming establishments, or do you need more of that leeway in making those determinations? And with that, committee, I hope I was brief enough. I will be happy to take any questions.
Questions, committee. Anyone? All right. Sounds like you're
Thank
very
you, Mr.
thorough.
Chairman.
Okay, we've got just a few minutes.
You got anyone online?
Is there anyone online? Okay, let's bring them in. Oh, okay. Sheriff,
Hey, he's your guy. Isn't he?
you're on.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, thank you very
Maybe
much.
not.
Can you hear me all right?
We can, yeah.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. My name is Alan Thompson. I'm the executive director of WASCOP, which is the Wyoming Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police. the majority of our membership is law enforcement on the local level, chiefs and sheriffs and their agencies across the state. This is a very interesting topic, the great discussion this morning. I wanted to point out that we are appreciative of the great working relationship that we have with the Gaming Commission, the staff at the Gaming Commission office, and their investigators and Director Moore, and to be part of this conversation ongoing. And the biggest point in the I guess further discussion in the future is the need to define a bona fide social relationship. Because while all these topics that we talked about today kind of focus on the state level and enforcement from the Gaming Commission, what we experience on the local level is trying to determine what is gambling and what isn't gambling on the local level. And we would love direction from the legislature. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Can you tell us what that looks like on the ground? What kind of fact patterns does it come up where you're trying to figure out whether it's gambling or not gambling?
Well, the biggest thing that we realize, Mr. Chairman, is 23 different county attorneys or district attorneys. Each county is different, each community is different, and some consistency driven by the legislature would be helpful.
I think you could clarify the statute and you're still going to have 23 different opinions from 23 different lawyers, but that's probably not being responsive to the need. Anything for Sheriff Thompson? Anything? All right, that brings us to, thank you very much, Alan. That brings us to the top of the hour, and we are now, Lubnau's, heck, Lubnau's here. All right. Speaker Lubnau, speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly, I've been observing this as an observer for the governor. My first observation is that the commission needs policy guidance. They administer the statutes passed by the legislature, but they don't believe it's their job to set Wyoming policy. They believe that that's your job, and actually the governor's asked that too. My suggestions to the committee are as follows. First, Wyoming needs a uniform statutory framework with uniform definitions that apply. And there are examples where the definition of operator in one part of the statute doesn't apply to other parts of the statute because we've been piecemealing statutes. So we need an overarching framework. We'd like long-term policy strategy set by the legislature. Are you on the road to full legalized gambling, or is it something else? I think that incorporating the strategy with the tribes is important, and having a negotiated compact with both tribes as this industry expands. And then the final thing is, what level of gaming is acceptable in Wyoming? As you know, gaming is just reallocating money from unlucky people to lucky people, with the operators taking out a commission as it goes through. And how much of that occurs before it becomes a big toll on Wyoming paychecks. You've heard today that Wyoming is not Las Vegas. And so at some point there becomes a critical mass. The existing owners are happy just to limit anybody else coming in. I think that's a ticket for lawsuits. With that, I'd stand for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for Representative Lubnau?
Ask him if he wants to draft a statutory framework.
Yeah, that's it. Representative Nicholas wants to know if you want to go ahead and draft that overarching statutory framework. Since you're working gratis for the governor, you may as well work for us gratis too.
Let me talk to my boss, Mr. Chairman.
Let us talk to your boss.
Yeah, Rita's not part of this.
Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaker Lubnau, with your experience, it'd be good to hear as we go forward through this conversation, your views and perspective, relative to the social costs. Would you agree?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Henderson, I'm trying to be very careful about not sharing my views since I work for the governor and just passing the governor's views on. If I can get permission from the governor, I'd be glad to share them. I think there are some real social costs that we need to consider. As Chairman Kinski knows, I began my career working as a law clerk in Las Vegas. And one of my first tasks as a law clerk was setting up a casino in Moapa. And then another time I sued the mafia, which made the boss mad. I think I think we've done a very good job in this state, staying ahead of things, but the growth is just so big and the dollars are so huge. I sent you an email with some of my concerns, and I can further elaborate on that, or you can just look at the email and call me.
Okay, anything else for Speaker Lobdow? Anything else? All right, that wraps it up. Thank you, Tom. We've got your 4 points. It's concise and clear. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have a great day.
I think that wraps it up, doesn't it? So, all right, we're gonna close out the gaming section, and we're gonna proceed to ETS. And with that, I think our first up is a new staff director. No, it says interim, Aaron Roberts. Interim, or is he the director?
Changing of the guards here.
Okay.
Take 5.
I think we'll be pretty fast. Do you want to take 5?
You could.
All right, we'll stand at ease for 5 minutes.
Thanks.
Thanks. We all.
Yes.
typically the purview of a permanent CIO, who will have the mandate to envision a long-term strategy that aligns with the state's overarching goals. My goal is to prepare a solid foundation for my successor, ensuring they have all the information and organizational support needed to make informed strategic decisions. At this point, we are ready to provide a walkthrough of the agency update. Alternatively, if you prefer, we can proceed directly to addressing any questions the committee may have. Thank you. Mr. Chair, on page 5, the security and staffing. As the threat landscape continues to evolve, Wyoming is confronted with escalating cyber threats that jeopardize the sensitive data of the state and the privacy of our citizens. To counteract this, it is imperative that we fortify our cybersecurity defense with a multi-phased, robust staffing strategy. This includes not only the recruitment and retention of current and future cybersecurity professionals, but also enhancing our collaboration with K-12 and higher education institutions. In parallel, we recommend conducting a formal ETS classification analysis of all computer technology positions. This will enable us to properly classify employees within their respective career fields, thereby establishing accurate and equitable compensation packages. On page 6, the newly allocated positions. The new allocation of positions includes key roles in the IT operations, underscores our commitment to bolstering state technology infrastructure with leaders like CTO, Chief Technology Officer Justin Miller, overseeing the enterprise IT systems. We're enhancing our capacity to support all state agencies, schools, and community colleges, ensuring reliable and secure network connectivity across Wyoming.
Please, Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Director Roberts. On these new positions, just a follow-up or an update, how are you doing in recruiting those positions? Because that was a big discussion during the session. Are we going to be paying enough that you'll be able to even fill the position? So update us on your recruitment efforts. Have they begun?
Mr. Chair, Representative Walters, excellent question. So our current positions, we had to write our essentially job descriptions for those positions and do some of the paperwork behind the scenes. Though that's currently at HRD for approval. Once position numbers are assigned to those positions, we can essentially advertise those positions across the state and national wide.
Mr. Chairman, follow up?
Please.
In your opinion, based on the pay level and the job descriptions you have came up with using, do you think you'll have success in recruiting for those positions? And then a second question to that is, how successful do you feel you'll be recruiting those positions from in-state folks, or will most of them need to be brought in from out of state, if you have any idea of that?
Mr. Chair, Representative Walters, good question as well. So first, as far as our successful, the classifications currently established, we are able to pay the 90% of MPP, which was allocated in the $2 million source. We come just 1.88 million of that 2 million for those salaries. So the funding based on the current classification is adequate. As far as recruitment and retention of potential employees, some positions are going to be easier to recruit than others. Our goal is always to recruit and retain Wyoming folks. I mean, we want Wyoming people to fill Wyoming state jobs. Some of these positions, that's a tough ask. Mr. Chair, under the leadership of Jenny McCullough as Chief of Customer Support Services, we have added strategic positions to improve service delivery and customer satisfaction. These roles are critical as they align directly with our strategic vision to deliver value and support to end users, thereby elevating the effectiveness of our services across the state. Assigning 2 positions to the Business Management Office led by Chief Jeff Doctor will bolster our enterprise agency program and portfolio management. This initiative will assist in existing projects management shortfalls and further improve our overall enterprise procurement process. The 2 new positions in the cybersecurity division will enable cross-functional skill sets, reducing but not eliminating single points of failure and fostering career development opportunities within the security team. For the next section, the pages 7 through 11, we've kind of done a summary for that.
Please, Representative, Co-Chair Nicholas.
So just to follow up on the new positions, for the Business Management Office and for the customer service, did you have to rewrite those job descriptions as well for all of them, or are those already been? My recollection is we made a lot of these funds available immediately. So have any of those positions been filled or advertised yet?
Mr. Chair?
Please.
So they have not been advertised or filled at this point because they are newly established positions. They have to go through HRD to get a position number assigned. Once the position number is assigned, we can associate the funding to that position and then advertise. Right now, we can't advertise.
So my question is, when did that go to HRD? How long have they had it?
Mr. Chair, I have to get you the exact dates. We've gone through the process. We did write brand new JCQs for all the positions. We did have the old ones, but we wanted to make sure they were accurate and reflected the current environment. So we recreated all 10 JCQs, did what they call a per 6, which is the financial form associated with each position, submitted that, and it's going under review with the Department of HRD.
Mr. Co-Chair, did they give you an estimated time frame to get those back to you?
Mr. Chair, yes, they have up to 90 days.
Yeah, but can they do it in less than 90 days is my question. And so there's someone back against the back wall back there that might be able to answer that question. Or in the middle.
We used to go through the city of Sheridan where it'd say, I have 90 days to return your building permit. I'd say, how long does it usually take? 2 weeks. Then why are you telling people 90 days?
Chairman Kinski, Co-Chair Nicholas. Tricia Bach, A&I Director. I don't know the exact date that they came down, but in the rules, it says you have 90 days. It usually just takes us a couple days to do it, especially if it's classification that we already have. If it's a brand new classification, it takes a little longer. So I can double check probably by the time you're done here to see when it went in and when it'll be back.
Well, I appreciate that. Obviously we did this to make it a hurry up because testimony in JAC in January and in December was it's a critical need. So we made it a priority to happen. And so we want to keep that priority moving quickly. So that's the nature of the questions.
Yes, and I'll have an answer for you too.
Great, thank you.
Please proceed.
Pages 7 through 11. We delve a bit into the project proposal request process, what we often call a PPR, the IT request proposal process, RFPs, contract reviews, and purchase reviews. So I've kind of, like I said, did a little summary on this one. We have and continue to enhance our IT management processes across the board to ensure efficiency and security. This includes streamlining the updating of our IT project proposal requests to accelerate approvals while maintaining stringent security standards and refining our IT contract and purchase review process for strategic, fiscally responsible procurement. These reforms will ensure that our technology services are both effective and secure, meeting the evolving needs of Wyoming. Page 12 covers the technology replacement program. Our proposal improves to the technology improvement program will centralize inventory management within ETS, streamlining the replacement process. This approach accelerates the updating of outdated hardware, enhances cost effectiveness, and lightens the administrative burden on individual agencies, ensuring they will have access to modern, secure tools. Additionally, by making purchases at the state level instead of individual agencies, we capitalize on economics of scale, achieving significant cost savings and optimizing budget utilization across the state.
So Aaron, just to follow up on that, on your page 8 through 12, these are programs that were initiated basically back in 2021. And so you presented those to us, your predecessor has, we've approved them. And our general response has been, go to it. I mean, and you know more about it than we do, and we just want to see good results. And so just in case you didn't hear those comments, I just want to regurgitate that from the co-chair standpoint.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I appreciate that. And our goals and objectives here was to definitely give you a more refined definition of our processes and how many days it took at each level, or had up to at each level. So you can have an overall view of the.
Right.
Okay.
I would stand for any questions at this point. That's kind of our.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Questions, committee, questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please. Representative Swanitzer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We received a memorandum through MLSO, and I had a question. So it said back in 2022 that the legislature appropriated some money for basically you guys to do a better job of IT inventory and expenditure tracking. And it says that you guys decided to keep a product called ServiceNow, but to do away with the Aptio. But my question is that it states here that the staff determined that wasn't a preferred program and that you're going to be developing an in-house option. So could you give us a little more highlight of if we funded money for particular programs, the reasoning that we're dropping one and just doing an in-house one?
Mr. Chair, Representative Swanitzer, I would defer that question to our Chief of the Business Management Office, Jeff Doctor. He has some, he's got better knowledge of that than I do.
Don't drop it.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Doctor, Chief of the Business Management Office, Enterprise Technology Services. Mr. Chairman, Representative Swanitzer. The Aptio solution is a online kind of a, sorry, nerves. It's an online solution to track IT spend. And so in doing that, we pulled data from Wolves, the accounting system. And basically what we discovered in bringing that information in is we were just processing the same information that was contained in Wolves. And so in a cost savings measure, we discontinued Aptio and are relying on or utilizing our data team to help make that, to track that IT spend. Sorry.
Any follow on, Representative Swanitzer? Okay, thank you. Anything else before we move on to Mr. Hibbard? Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Roberts, question, and just really an overall question of ETS's relationship with Homeland Security regarding cybersecurity and how those two interact.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Representative Walters, that's a great question. So we definitely have the cyber assistance response effort, which was originated through executive order by Governor Gordon. Our relationship with Wyoming Office of Homeland Security, our Fusion Center, which is located in the Department of Criminal Investigations, our federal partners, that executive order codified the CARE team. I would categorize Wyoming Office of Homeland Security as the main point of contact for entities outside of the executive branch, boards and commissions to contact with any cyber related incidents. And ETS is the technical arm. So when assistance is requested, we go in once asked and approved, we go in as the technical aspects and provide if they need servers, clients, workstation computers, switches, firewalls, and of course our security tool set. But the relationship has been well. It's been well.
Follow on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there a more efficient way to do that? You said they're the point of contact if it occurs, is what I'm assessing that answer to be. And then they call you to come in and mop it up, if you will. Would it be more efficient to have them call you first as opposed to Homeland Security first? Looking for efficiencies, looking for securities as to the best operation, best procedures here.
Mr. Chair, Representative Walters, I think it's set up the way it should be. With Lowe's being Wyoming Office of Homeland Security being the initial point of contact, they field a lot of the questions that we need in order to provide support. And one of them is going to be, when there's a cybersecurity incident, does that entity have cybersecurity insurance? Because we want to make sure we don't step on any toes, whether it's a county, municipality, or whoever it may be. So they vet those questions before requesting assistance from us.
Okay, anything else? We're 15 minutes from breaking into executive session. We still have to go through budgeting. Representative Stith.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Roberts, I'm not sure if this neatly fits into the agenda, but one topic I'm interested in over the interim about enterprise technology services is that when we're evaluating whether to buy expensive new pieces of software for whether it's the Department of Transportation or Department of Family Services, if there's a way for us to estimate what productivity gains we might get out of such a new system. Do you have any thoughts on how we could measure that or know in advance? Because one of the purposes I would think of information technology generally is that you can, accomplish more work or provide a better service for using fewer people or otherwise incurring fewer costs. Any idea of how you would have, but we don't talk about it much. And so the question is there any way to have a line item or a way to estimate with new projects, hey, this will have X productivity gain or this will have negative productivity gain because we're just playing defense, for example?
Mr. Chair, Representative Stiff. Good question. And that's definitely very complex because we're talking about return on investment based on a purchase of a specific technology type. Generally, we can get some guesstimates, but that's what they are in that initial phase, because in the initial phase of any spin up or installation of a new project that's where the cost is going to be. Now, being able to provide those services to multiple agencies and then spreading that cost over multiple agencies, that's where we're going to start seeing return on investment. It does take time. It's a long-term investment. And I'm going to use ServiceNow as an example. We're at the initial phases. Initial costs are somewhat high, but as we spread those services over multiple agencies, you're going to see those costs decrease for not only ETS, but the agencies.
Okay, let's close that out and bring up there's one more. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative, please.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back to security and staffing levels. We know that there's been high turnover, and then we're concerned with recruitment and retention. And I know many of our state employees are doing 2 or 3 jobs, and maybe the technology is helping them do that more efficiently, but everybody's carrying a big load. So beyond just the market analysis that you've recommended, looking at the classifications and the studies, are there other things we should be aware of or supporting you with to retain and recruit the most talented staff here in the state of Wyoming? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Representative Sherwood, good question. That's a tough one too, because retention and recruitment of IT staff in general it's pretty tough. But when you get into a specialized field like security, network, system administration, firewalls, to find those people with a high level of skills, honestly, a lot of times we don't have it in Wyoming. So those duties are, the good people get the more work is what it comes down to. If you prove to yourself to what you do well, we have a tendency to pile more on. That's definitely not a good approach because our people are feeling it. And we want to retain as many people as we can. How do we offset that? There's definitely going to be multiple variables in offsetting that type of approach. but ultimately it's spreading the workload among more people.
Was there somebody else in addition to Representative Sherwood? All right, let's go ahead and close that out. Mr. Hibbard, welcome. Okay, and I believe this is a joint between you and Mr. Roberts and these other folks on budget processes and replacement of hardware and software, correct?
Correct. Mr. Chairman, I'm Kevin Hibbert. I'm the Director of the State Budget Department. Through the last Joint Appropriations Committee hearings, we discussed making a more efficient process for the TRP, Technology Replacement Program. The current process is disjointed because we are in a conversation with an agency about the agency-driven priorities, and then we get into a TRP, into a computer request. And then we go back and forth inside of that. It really is not an efficient use of our time or your time. So I believe you understand that challenge, and we were asked to come up with a philosophy to address that. But before I get into the conversation, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this will not change any ETS policies. There is no recommendation to change anything what ETS is currently doing. All we're trying to do is make a more efficient process. This also does not change anything that takes place in the state financial system with SAO. It's completely independent of that as well. So there's no risk on either side of that. I developed a few alternatives. One was just a standard general fund budget, but naturally, then we forgo the federal revenue or the special revenue. That's millions and millions of dollars. I also came up with a recommendation originally, and we had conversations about it, to make it just like the CapCon book. But the CapCon's book, again, is a specific instrument with specific funding. And it doesn't really allow us for the autonomy of the agencies to be able to have their role in the process and have their finances inside of their organization. So what we did is we met with ETS and other stakeholders, and we came up with a process that says, well, we're going to get you an enterprise TRP budget that would be similar to that of a CapCon budget. You've all worked the CapCon budget. It's an enterprise budget. And so we're going to deliver that for you. We're going to call it 277. Right now, the CapCon book is 227. 27 is the state construction office's budget. 227 is the CapCon budget. There's a relationship. ETS is 77. The ETS enterprise TRP budget would be 277. So there's a relationship there. Important to note that in the enterprise budget, it'll be all inclusive, driven by a conversation with the Joint Appropriations Committee with ETS in a room for the entire enterprise. It'll be much more succinct, much more supported by the stakeholders, and we know it's going to save us time and efforts. Important to note.
Representative Larson, please. Sorry, Mr. Hibbert.
So Director Hibbert, within that, just thinking of CapCon and then thinking of a similar thing, that then would allow us to see it agency by agency, right? And so, as you mentioned earlier, where that becomes difficult in this situation, you would then be able to define it agency by agency and revenue or how we're paying for it, whether that be federal funds, special funds, or whatever. Am I getting the vision of this accurately?
Absolutely. In the enterprise TRP book, an agency will be a division 001, Governor's Office, Secretary of State, all the way down the list. And yes, it'll be funds distributed to capture the revenue sources that are available. And also, we will put a request in the request number of computers, the number of desktops, the number of laptops. It'll be right there for you on the computer request, enterprise-wide. So you'll turn the book, Governor's Office, Secretary of State, State Auditor's Office. It'll be an enterprise book for you to work all of TRP in one conversation with the State Budget Department helping, but led by the ETS. And then there's a foundation in there. It's important that we want to make sure that we hand to you a zero or a first dollar entry or a first entry document that you get to take and then work to your extent to make your corrections. So let me say that in a different fashion. We give you the enterprise book. You want to change something, you change that. You don't have to change the whole gambit of everything in it for the LSO just simply to move forward with their budget for the legislative budget. Meaning that single point entry is a big deal for us. We don't want to have to do that multiple times. But there's another process in here. The foundation that we create inside of this is using the Chapter 17. Rather than having agencies have an exception request in their budget again and again and again and again, you'll have an enterprise book, but the agencies will keep their autonomy because in the Chapter 17, they'll have just exactly, it looks just like in a normal exception request. In the Chapter 17 report, there'll be funds distributed. It'll have the computer counts. It'll have everything in there. And then you'll be able to see what in the budget book, you'll be able to see, okay, here was the base budget and here's the new ask. You'll be able to compare what last biennium was to this biennium in Chapter 17. There's much more value to that as well, because now we have it in the section for the sections inside of the budget that LSO will eventually seek your authorization for. So Chapter 17 becomes a spending authority mechanism so that we can get it in the right place. And then the organizations can use their special revenue federal funds. But in the case of the federal funds, agencies are responsible for the CFA, Schedule of Expenditure and Federal Funds. They have to be the ones that report to the federal government on the CFA. So that all that is maintained. The Chapter 17 just becomes a foundation, a building block for us to be able to get toward the enterprise book. And then when we're finished, when you're finished with it, we can interface it into Wolves.
So, Mr. Co-Chair, so my question is, are you just doing this to be friendly with all the government agencies so you get to know them all and be friendly? So,
you know, honestly, I appreciate the question. We see this as easier for us.
Well, so my question is, in terms of, it'll probably take you a while to set this whole thing up, but to repopulate it should get easier and easier each year for the particular agencies, I presume. But what's your vision of this?
Mr. Chairman, we have the process established now. And then when we do the budget book and we do the work with ETS, they will give us, the State Budget Department ETS will do that. The same level of effort that we would have to do for the Chapter 17 to get that history in place would be the same level of effort that we would have to do by agency by exception request. So it's the same work effort. It's just a change in the platform. But the golden halo on this is an enterprise TRP book that you get to turn agency by request by request, including the number of computers, fully reconciled.
So let me ask you about the scope of it. If it's 5 years, it's time to replace a laptop or a desktop, and whatever the operating software is that comes with that, I get it. What about when an agency says we need to replace our servers? And there's a question as to whether they should have servers at all, or they should be operating out of the cloud, or, we need $17 million worth of software for welfare case management. That's not going to be part of this process, is it?
Mr. Chairman, inside the enterprise book, we can make that happen. And let's just use a real-time example. You can use RIS. That's a real-time example. Their choice is to just keep this strictly to TRP and then have a request in the agency's budget for those larger lifts. But yes, we have considered that, and there's multiple options. But our expectation is when we get the product for you, it has the enterprise.
Everything.
There's some challenges on 292, which is software maintenance, and there's challenges on these larger ones. We may choose to implement simpler and then expand to that, but we know that we can get you the TRP, and it's already developed, and it's a zero-sum game for us.
Representative Larson.
So under our current practice in our budget hearings, Mr. Chairman, we have the agency directors come to us with these technology requests, and then we look in the back room to our ETS people to get validation of that what they're asking is right. It appears to me that with this contemplated, it would flip that, and we'd have ETS here, and we'd be putting the burden on them to say, we've reviewed the agency's request, and this is our recommendation to meet their needs as we've evaluated. Am I getting that right?
You're absolutely correct. And the best example is to look at state construction where Director McComey would come in. There's all different agencies involved in the capital construction budget, but he's sitting there as helping. Now, it doesn't preclude an agency from supporting that conversation or being available to that conversation. It doesn't take any autonomy away from the agency within inside their budget, because we're going to have that in Chapter 17. But you're absolutely correct. This will be a ETS conversation with the Joint Appropriations Committee with an enterprise TRP book.
Okay, we're behind on the schedule that we set to try and be less behind, but anything else here before we go into executive session? Anything else for these folks on this question? Ms. Bach,
I don't know if we can get Kevin to talk any faster.
I think he's doing fine, and I share his excitement.
Mr. Chairman, I did intend to go into more detail today on this topic, but I know we're sensitive for time, and I
think
can't
this is a
talk
model
about
for your
this is about as
presentations
fast as
moving forward. Ms. Bach.
Co-Chairman Nicholas, I did get some information. We have 3 positions from ETS that we received on Friday. So we're waiting for the other positions. I think they'll probably be in shortly for the other 7 positions. And because they're vacant in their new positions, they get turned over pretty quickly. So I could see those 3 positions back this week.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Anything else on this topic before we break into executive session? All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to go into executive session. So we clear the room of everybody except who's going to be, it's ETS is presenting, LSO staff and their committee. The governor's office.